Hello and welcome to Chadify. Today we'll be analyzing 3 new individuals who purchased my face analysis, Looksmaxxing suggestions, and chatification service off my website, Chadify.me. I would like to thank each of these 3 individuals for allowing me to showcase the results here and to support the channel Chadify. I'm not a medical professional or licensed practitioner. This is purely my own well-researched and documented opinion. I will be employing a mathematical rating criterion that I developed. On to face number 1, guys. He's 29 years old, 168 pounds at 5'9", with a complex phenotype, which we will dive into shortly. Here's a smiling shot of his face and an angle shot. I only kept the main photos here, which are relevant to our analysis. So face number 1 is a clear example of a couple different phenotypes. That is why I labeled it as complex. If you do not know what a phenotype is, check out my series on ethnicities or phenotypes, which is a better characterization of ethnicities if you want to learn more. That series is an ongoing process here at Chadify. So you can see this is a moderate match for the Mediterranean phenotype for face number 1. But the truth is, face number 1 is also a moderate match of this centralid phenotype. The centralid phenotype is a Native American phenotype which exists in Central America. Face number 1 is Latin American. He is basically a Latino, meaning that he is a mixture of European and Native American descent. And you could really tell when we move the 2 phenotypes here next to him that he definitely has the eyebrows and the eyes of the Mediterranean, but he has more of the jaw structure, a shorter mid-face, and the tan of the centralid phenotype. So he's definitely a clear-cut example of when these 2 phenotypes mix together. On to best features in order of importance. Face number 1. First of all, he has beautiful dark eyebrows and eyelashes. Secondly, he has thick, luscious hair. Thirdly, face number 1 has extreme width of the mid-face with a 2.1:1 ratio. This is extremely wide. Fourthly, face number 1 has a defined vermilion border and full lips. The vermilion border is the separation between the lip and the philtrum. Ideally, you want a very distinctive separation between these 2 attributes of the face. Additionally, face number 1 has a thick, built-up neck, which is apparent in every single one of these photos. It's almost bordering on excess. And he has excellent facial harmony. This is something that we have to just say right off the bat. His features of his face blend seamlessly together, reducing the effects of the potential flaws which will come later on in this video. He also has a lengthy ramus where his gonian undercuts his mouth by a decent margin. And he also has a straightforward grown mandible. Sometimes in my previous videos, I like to put these features first because they're quite important. But in face number 1's case, they are strong points for him, but they're not as strong as the things that come before this, which he is absolutely killing it on. As a result, this is why things sometimes shift in my videos. It's highly nuanced. Also has a refined chin structure, and he has short eyebrow distance. Face number 1 has a forward-grown maxilla and high-set cheekbones. I would say that this feature is not that common, and although it isn't extremely important, it definitely plays a massive role in an attractive side profile. You can see by this dotted line that it really is forward-grown. Subsequently, face number 1 has vibrant tan skin tone, which definitely fits the centralid phenotype. I will be releasing a phenotypes video specifically dealing with mixed origin phenotypes. So if you're Hispanic or Latino, there will be phenotypes specifically designated for each group in the future. And finally, face number 1's morphological phenotypic traits fit his phenotype. So basically the traits that he has, which range between phenotypes, which is a crucial part of determining facial attractiveness, as every phenotype has different expressions of each characteristic which makes them attractive. Well, the beautiful thing about face number 1 is that he fits each of them. He's not straying far away. And the reason I highlighted the mustache is this kind of a stereotypical thing for a lot of people that are Latin American to have, and honestly it looks great in his case because it even fits the culture of where he's from. And now, on to the flaws. This slightly overly compact mid-face. It's slightly short in distance. Now, this could be partly due to his facial position maybe being tilted upwards slightly more, which could skew the measurements. And even if he were to move his head downward a bit more, there's a very high probability that this this is a little bit too compact. If you watched my European phenotypes video, you would know the Mediterranean technically has a longer mid-face than 1:1. This is how the genetics work for this phenotype. It is technically more attractive for the Mediterranean phenotype to have a longer mid-face than the stereotypical conventional Chad. Whereas on the other hand, the Centralid phenotype technically has a little bit more of a compact mid-face, more around that 1:1 area. So face number 1 is leaning more towards the Centralid phenotype, but he's technically not in between the ratios for these two phenotypes, straying too far into the compact region. As a result, this is a small but slightly significant flaw. Secondly, face number 1 has a slightly long chin relative to his philtrum of 2.9:1. Neither of these phenotypes, nor really any phenotypes, benefit from having this ratio. This ratio puts him slightly more into a masculine area. And this will be reflected in his rating because 2.9:1 isn't inherently a flaw for all male archetypes. Additionally, he has slightly negative canthal tilt. Face number 1's gonian lacks outward growth. You can tell by the white dotted line that ideally it should be coming out more to the green area. And finally, he has slightly yellow teeth and a small gap denoted by this arrow. That's it, guys. I'm basically nitpicking for face number 1 here. Guess face number 1's rating, guys. We've got the pretty boy blend masculinity scale here. Boom. 7.5 out of 10. Hold up. Face number 1 has a bit of a Pedro Pascal appearance, guys. What does this mean in my rating scale where I do not use decimals? 8. Face number 1 is a Chad, and I would love for you guys to comment below if you agree or completely disagree. Judging by my analysis, this is absolutely and inherently the case. The truth is, guys, even as a Chad, you can improve. Face number 1 has to enhance his hairstyle. It's too plain, and even from the side profile here, it's not like a flaw or something. It's definitely still very thick and luscious, but there's just nothing going on here, which is to write home about. Secondly, gonian fillers. There's other things we can do, which we'll delve into later, but I think that fillers could definitely bring out the gonian growth here, which is slightly lacking compared to the rest of his facial features. And then considering a different facial hair. Now, I honestly think that the mustache fits him well, but it does place him into a slight niche. If he were to maybe shave it off or get a beard or do some sort of stubble thing, he could theoretically change it around. And then eyebrow adjustments right above the medial canthus of the eye here. We need to remove some of this eyebrow. They're too close set. Finally, orthodontics and teeth whitening. So if we can just remove this gap and get his teeth just a little bit more aligned and whiter, that would be ideal. Invisalign would be the maximum thing I would think that this guy would even want to consider, recognizing the fact that they're already quite straight. Time to Chadify face number 1. With infinite budget comes infinite possibilities. Let's take him up to the A+ level of attractiveness. Boom. Holy crap. You can see the shift of the curve is so minimal, yet the differences of his face are astronomical. It's crazy how exponential facial attractiveness improvements can be. And then that long hair is like the holy trinity of his appearance. Then I also simulated some removed mustache chatifications for the guy as he purchased more variants. You can see here that he's just so good looking. Here's a quick breakdown of what my website includes. My conventional package here includes a face rating out of 10, which comes with detailed analysis, Looksmaxxing suggestions, and one chatified image, as well as a morph video showcasing the before and after transformation. All of this is done while taking your masculinity and phenotype into consideration. Also have add-ons, the first one being add more chatified images. This one is extremely common if people want a side profile shot chatified as well as maybe a smiling shot. Many people like to add more, as you'll see in this video. Secondly, I got a quick delivery 24-hour service. And then finally, I have a full private video option. If you want like the craziest detail, this is it. Then we got a smiling chatification as well. Honestly, the hair, like the really long hair, I personally think it looks great, but I recognize that some people are going to look at this and say, oh, this is a bit of overkill, and they might prefer the shorter haircut. And now on to face number 2. Age 19, 157 pounds at 6'2", so he's very light for his height. I definitely see some muscle, but I would say that as we cycle through his photos here, he does look a little bit thin. Excellent smile shot. Now, it's pretty obvious that he is of the Celtid phenotype. Some people are going to look at his hair and think, oh, it's too blonde, which is partly why I bring up the Nordid phenotype, which is definitely also a strong phenotype for face number 2. However, as we look a little bit closer at his his face relative to the phenotypes here, we can definitely tell that the roots of his hair are actually darker than the Nordic, insinuating that he likely dyes his hair or it's just simply bleached out from UV, maybe a trip, or maybe he lives in Australia. Regardless, many of his features, his eyebrows and his eyelashes, are likely Celted by nature, but he does seem to have a skin tone which is more resembling the Nordic phenotype, as well as some other facial features, including his lip structure. Best features in order of importance. Face number 2. So first of all, he is a very lengthy ramus, where the Gonian undercuts the mouth substantially. As we can see with the white dotted line here, the ramus is coming down way beneath it. Secondly, he's a straightforward grown mandible, so these things are placed a little bit higher up on his hierarchy of facial attributes because, simply put, they are extremely strong in his case. And he has excellent facial leanness, so we can see in the angle side view shot here that his cervicomental angle is likely not ideal. Yet, he has a low amount of hyaloid fat or sag for the most part. And he has great facial harmony while smiling. This guy has a very pretty appearance. His eyes kind of sparkle as he smiles. Additionally, he has thick, dark eyelashes. And he has thick, luscious hair. Face number 2 has an ideal chin philtrum ratio of 2.5 to 1. It's a little bit on that higher end. And he has good eye proportions of 3.4 to 1. Face number 2 has a wide mid face, which is just extreme. Similar to face number 1, except this time it's definitely skewed, as I can tell he's looking upward. Unfortunately, some people do this in their photos. I recommend you stay as parallel as you can to the camera in front of you. So this likely would be below 2 to 1, slightly. I would say no matter what, he's gonna have a wide mid face. Like, it doesn't matter how we look at it here, it's very compact in here. Additionally, he has a unique green hazel eye color. I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but he definitely has a lot of pretty boy dimorphism going on with his facial appearance here. Very youthful, soft looking skin. Facial flaws in order of importance. Face number 2. Let's do it. First of all, he's a slightly warped nose bridge, yet excellent shape from the side profile. In some ways, this is kind of bittersweet for face number 2, because it looks so nice from the side profile here, but you know that it's bending over to that other side. It's just so close, yet a little bit far away from being ideal. Additionally, face number 2 has a short mid face. Again, this is likely skewed. He's tilting his chin upwards of 0.8 to 1. There's not a single phenotype on this entire planet, including all of the African phenotypes, which notoriously have overly compact mid faces compared to Europeans. There's not a single phenotype on this planet which supports a 0.8 to 1 mid-face ratio. Additionally, face number 1 has a sideways pointing medial canthus of the eye. This isn't a massive flaw, but it definitely does not add to his facial attractiveness. And he has slightly thin lips with a lack of a vermilion border, exactly the opposite of face number 1, and there's a bit of redness above his lip here, which is not ideal. Additionally, face number 1 has a narrowing lower third, which is somewhat detrimental for his situation. However, for more pretty boy looking men, they can get away with this a little bit more often, simply because a narrowing lower third isn't as much of a flaw for them as Chads or hypermasculine men. And he has some asymmetries. Again, although these are minor flaws, they do affect his attractiveness. There's no denying it. He has more upper eyelid exposure on the left eye here, or the right, depending on if the camera is flipping his picture here, of course. And on this side, his eye is actually a little bit higher up, so it has less exposure, resulting in more eye visibility. Ideally, maybe getting a blepharoplasty here would kind of even out his eye asymmetry. And that's it, guys. Let's guess face number 2's rating. What is his attractiveness, guys? What do you think? Where is it? Boom! 7 out of 10 from the blend masculinity perspective, peaking half of a point higher from the more pretty boy lens, which totally makes sense. I mean, look at his face. But from these areas, he's definitely less attractive. Boom. Looksmaxxing advice. Face number 2. Let's do it. First of all, gym. My argument is that being 71 kilograms is not jacked at 187 centimeters of height. Hear me out here. Controversial opinion, because I absolutely do not hold back on this channel. I don't believe there should be a limit to gaining muscle as a natural. In fact, I think that there's not a single natural lifter on this planet who has fully tapped out their muscle building potential ever. This sounds ridiculous, but the truth is, when people think that they're getting too big, that means that they're too fat. And being fat is terrible for facial attractiveness. There's a triangle. There are 3 sides on this triangle. Obviously, triangles are 3-sided shapes. Come on, guys, you should know this. So there's 3 things: big, shredded, natural. You can only pick 2. So if you want to be big and shredded, well, guess what? You can't be natural. Every single person who's like, oh, gym is a cope or gym doesn't help, guess what? If you tried it and you failed, it's because you got too fat. Having abs isn't enough. You need to be shredded or close to it. Your face needs to be lean. And so face number 2 is lean, but he's small. So if he wants to fully tap out his facial attractiveness and just body attractiveness in general, getting to 85 kilograms will increase his facial attractiveness and body attractiveness if he doesn't gain any fat. And of course, it's easier said than done. As a natural lifter, you can never have too much muscle. Additionally, mastic chewing gum, face number 2, does not have enough outward gonian growth. It kind of works to his advantage a little bit in the pretty boy realm, but it should be enhanced further. And of course, I use Spartan Health mastic chewing gum. Here's my referral link. You can copy this into your browser and purchase it if you're interested. The jaw literally has muscles on it. You're going to get a better jawline without much risk. And then face number 2 should absolutely correct for his crooked nose bridge. This is actually a bigger flaw in his circumstance because he's more in that pretty boy area. And when you're more pretty, you are leaning more towards the feminine archetype. And when you're more close to the feminine archetype, noses matter more. Face number 2 also should get a medial canthoplasty to lower the medial canthus of his eye here and just make his eye shape more attractive. And then hairstyle, which we will dive into next. Get ready, guys. Time to Chadify face number 2. Let's do it. Wow, this guy, his chatification is just majestic. Watch how his hair gets thicker, his nose gets corrected. We got some slightly longer hair. We got bangs side flowing, and then we got the front bangs, and then the hair gets even longer. I'm not saying that he needs to grow it out this long. I'm saying something in that ideal range that I've said previously is perfect. You can see how his nose bridge is corrected. His gonian has a bit more outward growth, but not overdone. And the medial canthoplasty makes such a big difference in his case. This guy has such immense potential going forward. And then we got his side profile chatification here. Boom, you can see how the muscle definitely helps his attractiveness. Face number 3, age 20, 180 pounds at 6'1". Side profile shot. He's got a basketball shot here. So this guy's a clear-cut example of the Orientalid phenotype, which is a widespread Middle Eastern phenotype. First of all, the eyes are just a dead giveaway. The nose, though I would say that his is actually a bit on the smaller side. And just his overall look fits the Orientalid phenotype, which is a strong match. But he's also a moderate match to the Mediterranean phenotype. I would say that he has actually a bit more of a Mediterranean nose versus a more Middle Eastern nose. The Mediterranean phenotype spans across the Mediterranean into the Middle East and even North Africa, which is technically the Mediterranean anyway. So there's definitely an influence of this in his genetics. And when we see them side by side here, I just have to say that this guy's a great example of these two phenotypes. Best features in order of importance, face number 3. Let's do it. So first of all, face number 3 has a straightforward grown mandible, and he has almond eye shape with an ideal eye ratio of 3.1 width to 1 height. Excellent. Face number 3 has a wide midface of 1.87 to 1. Holy crap, everybody in this video has a wide, excellent midface. This is amazing. And he has thick, luscious hair. Face number 3 has a lengthy ramus where the gonian undercuts his mouth. And finally, he has dark, thick eyebrows and eyelashes. Face number 3 definitely has more excellent features than this, but these are the main ones that were worth including in this video. Facial flaws in order of importance, face number 3. So first of all, he has a very short philtrum relative to his chin. Middle Easterns typically have a slightly longer nose relative to their just overall face, resulting in a longer chin philtrum ratio, meaning that their chin looks longer relative to their philtrum. However, he's outside that allowable range for the Orientalid phenotype. Secondly, face number 3 has average eye compactness. Although his eyes are somewhat deep set, the actual structure or orbital of the eye itself kind of protrudes out a little bit. And additionally, he has a little bit of hyoid fat or sag. It's apparent in all the photos. It's not skin tight, but this is something we can fix going forward. Additionally, face number 3 has a slightly short midface of 0.92 to 1. Remember, the Mediterranean phenotype has a slightly longer midface than 1 to 1, and the Oriental it does as well. Check out my European phenotypes video if you're confused on this. This means that this is actually quite a major flaw for face number 3, whereas for other phenotypes like African phenotypes, they could get away with this, and this would actually be a net positive for them. So it's very nuanced. Additionally, face number 3 has a sideways pointing medial canthus of the eye and has moderate eye-eyebrow distance. And he has average chin projection. His chin should come out a little bit closer to this white dotted line. And then finally, face number 3 has a faint cupid's bow. Guess face number 3's rating, guys. Put it in the comments. I wonder if you guys are gonna guess this one. Boom! 6 out of 10 from the blend masculinity perspective. His dimorphism, despite looking quite young, is technically all over the map. He doesn't really have a clear trend between the masculine and the pretty boy traits. What does this mean? Well, he peaks in the blend masculinity area. Looksmaxxing advice, face number 3. Gain muscle, lose fat, and mewing. Face number 3 has a decent physique already. He's pretty tall. It looks like he's athletic. He's going to continue doing this for sure. And as he gains muscle, he's going to get more attractive. If he in a year comes back and he orders a new analysis from me, guaranteed he's going to look better if he gains some more muscle. But mewing actually helps him. And again, we always have to talk about the controversy like, oh, mewing doesn't do structural changes. Well, guess what? Mewing does one absolutely true thing, and no one can tell me otherwise. Mewing can reduce the appearance of the hyoid sag or fat here temporarily. Whenever you're mewing, it will suck this area up if you're doing it right. And in that case, you're gonna look better in pictures, you're gonna look better in real life in everything. You better have good mouth posture. It's just a better way to live. Secondly, minoxidil, he needs more cheek hair growth. We're gonna simulate multiple scenarios in the chatification of this, but ultimately, he should either just shave it all off or he should work on getting it more thick. Obviously, over the next few years, his facial hair is gonna thicken naturally, so this might not be necessary. And then natural maturation. Obviously, face number 3 looks very young. Face number 3 needs to take some time for his maturation and his development to complete itself, because he's going to get more chiseled over time if he follows great habits. Time to chatify face number 3. Let's do it. Oh wow. Oh wow. Yes. And then we remove the beard just to showcase that. I do think the beard looks actually kind of good. Takes the focus off of the longer chin relative to his philtrum. Boom. And so you can really see that actually longer hair does work for face number 3 in some ways, because there's certain flaws that get mitigated by it. And then here is his entire graph. You can see he's shifting a bit more than the previous other faces because he's starting from a slightly less attractive area at 6 out of 10 versus 7 and 8. That said, guys, he's still very much above attractive. The 3 faces today have been extremely attractive faces. This is just how it works sometimes. They end up being really good looking guys. Something extremely important to touch on here is the idea that phenotypes exist. It's the idea that people across the world look different. They have different expression or values from the morphological phenotypic traits that they possess. This sounds really complicated, but what it's basically saying is that a phenotype from Europe is going to have a drastically different look from someone that's Latin or someone that's Arabic, and yet they can all be equally attractive. Phenotypes matter, and Looksmaxxing must take into consideration the phenotype in which you are. All 3 of these men here require slightly different Looksmaxxing tactics and strategies to fully tap out their facial attractiveness. It's insane that people think cookie cutter advice from non-qualified speakers is adequate. At Chadify, my goal is to unite everyone across the globe and recognize the fact that any phenotype is capable of chatification, but that it requires nuance and a highly specific Looksmaxxing strategy going forward. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.